Welcome. I am Ashley Jacobson, and this is the Dog Dialectic Podcast. I am joined with my co-host, as always, Kelly Ortega out in Texas. How you doing, Kelly?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. And today we have a super special guest with us, the author of many of my absolute favorite dog training books and the author of the new book that is out today, Marc Goldberg. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you so much. And here it is.
Oh, I love it.
So I finally got one in my hot little hands. And those of you who have ordered or pre-ordered will have yours in just a few days.
Awesome. So since this is also going to be available in just audio, what is the name of the book and where can people get it?
Well, the name of the book is The Joy of Playing with Your Dog. And it is available here. Hopefully you guys can read that. For me, it's showing backwards, but I think it's broadcasting correctly.
It looks good on our end.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be, it is on Kindle. It'll be on iBooks, electronic, every version, hardcover. And, good for disciplinary purposes. And I'm not talking about for the dog. I'm talking about, for spouses, partners. And it's also on audio, although I don't actually know how that works because the publisher handles it. But I know it's at least scheduled or is already available on audible.com and any other platform. I imagine it's there too.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic. I look forward to reading it for sure. I have read most of the other books. I think I've read almost all of them. So I'm a huge fan. I know Kelly has also read many of them once I've kind of forced her to, but I'm sure when she started, she's enjoyed them, right?
Yeah, they were pretty good.
That's a good answer. Remove the pretty and we're invisible.
They were very
you can just pretty for the authors. The book is good. The authors are pretty good.
Yeah. I undoubtedly refer your books to many of the clients who come in. I absolutely love them because, us as trainers, there's a lot that we can do to help our clients, but there's so much that can happen at home on a day-to-day basis. And I think your books are so good at really, creating that picture for the clients, helping them understand how our day-to-day lives don't have to revolve around sit and down and heel all the time, and how we can just live more stress-free with our dogs.
Well, what you say is very, very true. And I think the beneficial thing about writing dog books is that both Brother Christopher from the Monks of New Skete, my co-author, and me, we are both working dog trainers. I mean, we're living in the same laboratory that you guys are with board and train and lessons and phone calls and texts and Zooms to help clients keep it going. And one of the things that we know is that regardless of how well we train the dog, or teach the client to train the dog, things happen at home. And all too often, those things can accidentally untrain the dog. Mm-hmm. And, if we're lucky, when we get the phone call, the client cops to it and says, hey, things got busy. I didn't do everything you said. Sorry, things are, I need more help. If we're lucky, because if we're not lucky, you get the phone call, that dreaded phone call or email that the dog trainer once in a while gets from a less reasonable person, which says the training didn't work, as though training is just like a one-time event that you don't need to maintain. Like, you have to change the oil in your car once in a while, even. You have to fill it with gas. You have to maintain everything. So we wrote Let Dogs Be Dogs, our first collaboration together, the Monks of New Skete and I. And Let Dogs Be Dogs is just how to live in an intentional way with your dog to just keep behavior going on the right side. And then so that's how to live with a dog artfully. And then we wrote The Art of Training Your Dog, which is gentle e-collar training. And that's a step-by-step guide to do the training. But actually, I think one of the huge benefits of that training book that we've seen in our practice, and many of you have seen as well, is that you can refer your client to that book after you've done the training for them. And it's a resource that helps them keep the dog trained so that we're all like on the same literal page about how do we do things at home. And then this new book, of course, is how to play with your dog. But listen, people who own dogs, the dog-loving public, when we talk to them about how they play with their dogs, I think most dog trainers would define what they do with the dog as simply riling the dog up. You get the dog all, jacked up, wound up, and then in 10 seconds, it becomes unproductive. So either we get the dog playing and then the dog steals the toy and runs away with it, which just teaches, resource guarding and defiance and how to get one over on you. Or worse yet, the owner is like, mad and goes from jacking the dog up, and then the dog starts jumping and doing things that they don't like. And then 10 seconds later, they're scolding that dog. And so what we really wanted to do was to create games, tricks, and socialization stuff for puppies all the way through senior dogs that people will enjoy, that dogs will love to play with their owners, but which hides the training deep into the game where the dog's not going to notice, the owner's not going to notice. I mean, if you're going to get me to eat kale, it would be good if you hid it inside chocolate chip cookies or cheesecake. And
yes,
we're trying to hide the broccoli.
Yep.
Here, and it does work, and that was the basis of this book.
Oh, that's fantastic! I love it, and I absolutely 100% agree the benefits of playing with our dogs. And I find that it's more of a kind of complex topic when we try to talk with the clients about the benefits to training with play. Because everyone says, I play fetch with my dog, but he's still a jerk when he comes inside. And so being able to convey, in a way that they understand for people who aren't as experienced as dog trainers, how can we use this play more beneficially? And I think this is going to be an awesome topic that's going to be so useful for so many people. So
well,
that
what you say is 100% right. Listen, if you bring the dog back in after a game of fetch and your dog doesn't do this, which is what she does after every game of fetch, if that's not what your dog is doing, if the dog comes in rowdy, that just means you did it wrong. Yep. And there's no harm in doing it wrong, but there's so much benefit. And look, that's the benefit of doing it right. I mean, this dog, if she doesn't get her retrieves in, she's an annoying nutball. But what you're seeing there is just satisfaction. And by the way, that's not a command. She has a downstay, but I really prefer not to use it. Mm-hmm. I prefer my dogs to just choose to do the sensible thing. Read the room, girl, and just give me what seems sensible to you at the time. And that's working. So we talked an enormous amount about retrieve in the book because it's one of the simplest ways that a human being, even an older person, can stand relatively still, but like run a dog, get the dog moving and running. And that's a huge problem is people who are older but have highly spirited dogs that need to exercise, but yet they're just not in a position to do it. So if we teach retrieve correctly, what we teach is for the dog to wait, get it, bring it back, and then give it.
Yep.
The give it's the hard part. So we teach that, of course. And then there's a giant section on what do we do for a dog who doesn't want to retrieve, who doesn't care. And we can talk, much more detail about that as we go. But it's very important to teach dogs who don't seem to care about toys how to engage. And almost all of them can learn it. It's just a matter of teaching it.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those people who do have dogs who don't necessarily like to play, or they come in originally saying my dog doesn't like to play or doesn't know how to play, what are some things in the book or things that you want to share about how we can help them get started with playing with their dogs?
Okay. Well, actually, I'm going to show her one more time. This is my dog, Friday. She's a German Shepherd, clearly, and she's 7 years old now. But she was given to me at about the age of 2 or 2.5 by a client who just couldn't keep her. She was a nice dog, but she was a bag of nerves. Okay. She was the German Shepherd that you really don't want to deal with. There was no aggression, but there was pacing, whining, trembling, slobbering, failure to settle. The only time that she was satisfied or quiet was in the 10 seconds it would take her to engulf her meals, or when she finally just fell asleep at night, exhausted from anxiety. Very hard kind of dog to deal with. And it took me a while to figure, but however, sweet, like just a lovely girl. Honestly, I think she was a Labrador in her last life. So God forbid I ever need protection, because she will probably hold the door open while they steal everything good, good out of it.
She'll show them where all the good stuff is.
Yeah, she's a happy thing. which I love, right? Because I have visitors and guests here, and I like having a big dog. I like a smart dog, but yeah, I don't want to have to worry if somebody stumbles onto the property looking for the dog trainer that they get bit.
Mhm.
So anyway, she was difficult and unpleasant to deal with because she was just constantly whining and crying and trembling. Now, weirdly, her obedience was good. That was easy to teach and it was good. But you want to run a dog like this. A dog like this needed to run off her energy. Clearly, it's a working breed, a herding breed, but with a lot of work ethic. And yet this dog had no drive to do anything specific. So if I would, like my huskies, when I train a husky, all I really have to, I don't have to train a husky to run. I just have to teach them to not run away, right? Yeah. So you run your little guts out, but when I call you back, just run the other way and then run the other way. So what I've learned to do with a husky is to just stand in the middle of the field and just let them go woo all the way down there, and then just call them back and woo. And then eventually, they've done that 10, 15 times. Then I throw in a come, sit, and then, they're happy. But this dog wouldn't do that. Then I take her out into my field, my training fields. She just would want to like be by me and trembling and not know what to do with herself. So I threw a ball. She just looked at it like she didn't even really she just looked at it and then looked at me. She had no interest in the ball. And that reminded me of my friend Martin Dealey. Actually, he gave me this shirt. He's deceased now, but great guy, terrific trainer, specifically of retrievers. And one of the things that he told me was, and he showed me when I worked with him, I taught him a lot about e-collars, and then he taught me a lot about retrieving. He knew a lot about e-collars, but already to begin with, fabulous trainer. But we were symbiotic, he and I. We filled in little gaps of knowledge for one another, and it was a beautiful thing. And the most important thing I took from him on retrieving was, every dog has retrieve drive. Sometimes you have to wake it up, you have to discover it, and it could be that they've been yelled at for picking up things their whole life. If you have an older dog, and so they've been discouraged from picking things up. Or it may just be that you haven't found the one object that they really like. And so he had dozens, maybe 100 different types of objects. And he taught me to go through them one at a time, but slowly, maybe introduce one or two, or maybe maximum 3 different style, shape toys per day. He said, eventually you find one they like. And his secret method was, if he couldn't find anything, he would just take off his socks and tie them in a knot. He said, because dogs like things that smell like you. He goes, they'll usually go to that and at least sniff it, if not pick it up. And I thought, well, remember when I was young, we were taught, scold them if they touch laundry or socks or shoes. But this is half the reason dogs are afraid to play, because we start them off with, hey, no, stop and leave it. Anyway, I tried a lot of objects with this dog, but nothing worked. But I just was persistent. And one day I found a purple foam Frisbee. It was for dogs, and I just never used it, but I covered with dust. And I threw it not far. It plopped in front of the dog. And she kind of looked at it, like hard. She gave it a real look. And that moment when she gave it a real look, I marked that moment with a soft, gentle yes, just a little word of encouragement. Yes. And that's another thing. If you're babbling a lot, go on, do it, get it. You're just putting pressure on the dog, which is going to turn them off. So I'm very verbose with people, but with dogs, I'm zen, zen-like. Yeah. So I just worked that through until I quit marking it when she looked at it. So she thought, well, maybe I should go toward it. And I marked that. And then I quit marking that. And I waited until she put her nose on it. And then I marked that. And then within a couple of days, she was picking it up and just running around with it. And I didn't immediately call her back. I just let her enjoy the shaking it and nibbling on it and doing all the wrong things. But at least she had it in her mouth. And then a couple of days later, I just called her back. And she stopped 10 feet away from me. And she looked at me and she said, well, I'm very busy. I have something in my mouth right now. And I was like, I know, but come here. Just get here. And when she got there, I loved her up. Another thing that Martin taught me, and this is information in the book in a more coherent way than, that I'm relaying it now. But one of the things that Martin really stressed was, if the dog finally picks up a toy, the first thing we do is we call the dog back and we snatch it out of their mouth. Now we're thinking, hey, that's the game. You get it? I take it. We do it again. But the dog is thinking, I brought you something really cool to show you and you snatched it away from me. So I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'll just come near you, but I'll, circle around. I'll give you my butt. I won't let you near that toy. Or maybe I'll just go the other direction with it because you're a party pooper. You take my stuff. So he was a big proponent of calling the dog in and then just petting the dog all over the body while the dog still possessed the object, and just work your way to the head and then take it and start again so that it's a more organic take. Anyway, I got to tell you, within a few days, she was a maniac for that. She was a maniac for that purple thing, that Frisbee. But I found that I didn't find it convenient because it just wouldn't loft terribly far. And I needed to run her harder and longer. She's young, very strong. And so I transferred the drive. I took the Frisbee away. No retrieving for maybe 2 days. Now she's pent up. Damn it, I want my Frisbee. And that's when I bring out the ball and the chuck it. And it took her a minute to transfer the drive from the one to the next item. But that is another key point. Once you awaken the drive and the dog successfully completes the prey-driven sequence, I mean, it's on board with the predator. Chase, catch, retrieve, kill, consume. It's all part of the DNA of these guys. Even the Chihuahuas. I mean, the reason they pick up the toy and shake it is they're breaking the back of the little mouse.
I have 2 Chihuahuas and I can attest to that.
By the way, I have the only rat terrier who really doesn't like rats. She's like, ooh, there's one rat. Just, Her border collie partner is deceased now, but she used to call him and she would find them and he would dispatch them. So
nice. Perfect.
They had a good partnership. But at any rate, once you awaken the drive, you can transfer objects to the object that you would prefer, right? Sure. So, and the beautiful thing about retrieve now for me and this dog is I can take her out with the chucket. I can do a half a dozen throws, and at the age of 7, that's kind of enough for her now. And but I'm very careful to ask for a sit or a down if she starts to rev up too much between throws. Mm-hmm. If she tries to take the ball and run away with it, I call her back, and she's learned not to do that now. So. And actually, if you want to see what it looks like, if you go on Amazon and you look up The Joy of Playing with Your Dog, it's sold everywhere books are sold, but on the Amazon listing, there's a picture of the front cover. And if you swipe that picture, swipe right. And if you swipe that, right behind it is a video where Brother Christopher and I are talking about the book and demonstrating the book. And I'm using Friday there for the demo in my part of the video. So you can see the retrieve, and you can kind of see the control that we weave into the game. And I guess I'll wrap this segment up on the following notion. What makes play beneficial for dogs is that it's fun if you do it right. So they want to do it, but all good games have rules. And if you weave the rules into the game, then the dog is learning patience. And patience is a virtue. It's the biggest virtue you could possibly teach a dog. So a dog who will lay down and calm herself for a quick moment. Hold on. Okay, I'm ready for my next retrieve. A dog who will calm her own mind in order to earn the next retrieve is a dog who can apply the same brain chemistry when company comes in. And she needs to be, happy and excited to see people, but then she needs the self-calm.
Mm-hmm. It's funny you say that because, I do a lot, I guess you can tell in the video, I do a lot of competitions with my dogs.
I see that.
And so, the way we play when we're doing like working dogs is the exact opposite. Like you don't get the ball until you give me the very high level activity that I want. But it's fascinating to hear you talk about using it to create that calm mentality as well. And it makes perfect sense just to do the opposite. Just wait until you chill.
That's
Once you're
right.
calm, that gets you the reward.
Well, it's a funny story because if you think about trainers working with working dogs, what you need is you need extreme drive. You need a spring ready to sprung, but then you need the dog to do what you've taught her to do with that energy so that it doesn't, so she doesn't disqualify herself.
Yeah.
Biting the wrong guy, biting in the wrong place, going to the fly ball before she's been sent or whatever, whatever the sport is. But the general public lives with dogs who have drive. We need to honor that drive. We need to use it. We need to give the dog a good outlet. You cannot suppress drive. If you merely punish a desire to be a dog, to use the DNA that God and man gave that dog, then you're playing whack-a-mole, time you suppress a behavior by whacking it down. No, stop. No, even barking, you can bark collar a barky dog, but that doesn't quiet the mind. So then they're just going to lick holes in themselves or break their teeth on things. You're playing whack-a-mole with the behavior. But if you can harness the behavior and tie it to something else that the general public needs, like calm. I like lazy dogs. I'm busy fixing everybody else's dog all day long. I need my own dogs to be pretty simple.
Yep.
And so my shepherd that I've shown you here, she's actually from Schutzhund. I don't know what they call it these days. They call it IPO now.
It's now IGP. It was IPO for a long time. So
I'm sorry, I'm a little out of touch with the bite sports, right?
It's fine.
But at any rate, she's from those lines, and her pedigree is filled with titles. And so naturally she has drive. So she wants to do the hold bark anytime she sees me with the ball.
Yep.
And I know I'm never going to eradicate that. That has been built into this dog. So it's not that I want to eradicate it, but at a certain point, I want to be able to control it. I want to be able to stop it. I want to be able to say, now we're on stealth ops. Okay. And rah, 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 is, not the appropriate approach for that. And so what I've taught her to do is to turn that into a moment of calm. And the way I did it was I just let her bark it out one day. And then when she was like, wait, this doesn't seem to be working, I asked her for a down. She did it. And she then was in the down position, but in a sort of a trembly, obsessive way.
Right.
And I just waited. The dog I got that tattoo for was a Doberman who loved two things in life. I mean, he loved a lot of things, but his favorite two things in this world were me and food. And I'm not sure that I got the order correct. But he was a big boy. He was big. He was about 100 pounds. And when I used to start preparing food for him, he would throw his body around, spin in circles, just get crazy. And he started crashing into me, cabinets and stuff. And one day I realized the dog has trained me to feed him faster.
Yep.
Because even dog trainers will be trained by dogs. It's inevitable. Or the cobbler's kids have no shoes. So sometimes our own dogs get away with stuff. And he trained me to just go quicker. And the crazier he got, the quicker I went because I wanted it to stop. And then one day I was like, hang on a minute. I don't like this anymore. His name was Diablo, and he was such an angel. But nonetheless, Diablo, I thought, this is not working anymore. So I need to interrupt this cycle. So I put him in a sit, and he did. And then I fed him, and that was good for a couple of days. He would start to offer the sit, but he was sitting like this. And one day I thought, that's not good enough, because by using a command, I have locked the body into a specific position. But what about the mind? Now, guys, I don't know if you know this, but if you've ever been in a dispute with somebody and you said the fateful words, calm down.
Nope.
What I have discovered with my partner is that does not calm down anything. It's sort of like throwing, gasoline on the fire. Calm down. No, you calm down.
Oh, yeah.
So we can't tranquilize the mind, okay, by issuing commands. So what I did was I just stopped with the food. He's sitting there, he's looking at me, and I just waited. And which is a hard thing to do, you know, for the average person if they don't have a purpose, if they don't know what they're doing. But I had an idea. I had an idea that he would become confused, and he did. And in his moment of confusion, he went, "What the heck?" And as he started to look at me and think it through, he quit trembling. So I quit. I started preparing again. When we went back and forth like that on that meal, 3 or 4 times until he went, "Okay, you know what? Hang on a second. Give me a minute." And he laid down. He said, "Hold on. You may resume feeding me now." And I watched him, you know, I watched him lower, because he understood I was no longer going to feed a frenzied mind, that I was going to feed a calm mind. And we were done after that. I never had to give him another command again. He would just park himself in the down position. And I've never had a dog like him since. He was in the 90s, and I've never had a dog like him since until this one here. And if I just hold on to that ball too long, she'll stop the bark and hold, and she'll just lay down, because she knows that's what I reward. And that's shown in the video that I mentioned. So the average person isn't buying a Malinois or a, you know, working line border collie or whatever it is that we dog trainers like to play with. They just want a dog they can live with. But the best way to teach a dog to calm herself periodically is to give her body the expression of energy she needs, but then to teach her the reward to continue the game is a moment of calm. And so there are a lot of games in there that I think do that.
Ken, that's awesome. I love it. And the anecdote you have about the Doberman, correct me if I'm wrong, that's from Let Dogs Be Dogs, because it sounds like word for the recommendations of how like I want my clients to be feeding their dogs as well. I love it.
Yeah, you know what? And in fact, that section in Let Dogs Be Dogs, I might not have never written that if I hadn't done a really dumb thing, a thing I'll never do again, which is I was doing a kitchen remodel, and I replaced the cabinet doors with glass.
Oh no.
Which sounds like a really good idea, you know, because like remember in House Beautiful back in those days, you know, glass. Well, 2 things happen when you replace a lot of things, but when you have glass cabinet doors, everything in there needs to be really neat so that it looks good. And secondly, you don't want the dog, you know, crashing into the cabinet doors.
So you did like your lower cabinets too.
It was not smart.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was not smart. But that caused me to become alarmed that this way that I had been feeding him was not good for his health, my health, the kitchen. And then I realized, you know, that he had actually influenced me. He had trained me, and not in a way that I liked. I mean, they train us in good ways too. Like I know on my Shepherd, I know the difference between her, I want an ice cube versus I got to go to the bathroom. Like she tells me what she needs. And so I'm smart to respond to some of the things that she needs and make her delay other things that she's requesting that she thinks she needs, but she doesn't really need, or that she shouldn't be demanding for. But game-based learning is maybe the single most powerful way to transmit information to a dog that they begin to actually apply for themselves. Game-based learning, it's extremely powerful because the dog opts in as opposed to obedience. Now, the reason that I thought we could write this book was when I was teaching competitive obedience and training in AKC obedience trials, there are just some exercises which are, I don't want to say they're dumb, but they're not particularly exciting, right? Such as the broad jump in the open class, where the dog has to take a jump for no apparent reason. I mean, there's nothing been thrown, you know, at least on the high jump, it's retrieve over high jump. So they're jumping over over the hurdle in order to take the dumbbell. I know they do that in certain other dog sports as well, right? But the broad jump, there's literally no reason. They're not even jumping toward you. They're jumping away from you, and then they have to turn, come back and front you. So I invented games to teach that. Drop on recall, where you leave the dog 40 feet away, and on a signal from the judge, you call the dog to you, and they have to run in. And at a certain point, the judge gives you another signal, and you have to just down the dog in place with a single verbal or one single command. And then you get another nod, and the dog has to happily, run back in the rest of the way. But the dog thinks it's a dumb game. Like, I just know you're going to down me, so I'll just do it before I get there. Or why would I run to you if you're just going to drop me in place? And so I had to invent games to make all of that work for the dog. And what I found was the dogs who we taught with games opted into the exercises, and they became steady. Whereas dogs we trained the old-fashioned way, oh, you'll do it because I said so. That's why. Yep. I remember how to do that. I started training dogs in 1970, so I remember how we did it.
Yeah.
Anyway, the dogs who learned with games were always happier, more alert. Far better dogs.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I don't know how familiar you are with like Schutzhund and IGP, IPO, whatever it's called now. The send out, like what you're describing, the send out, it baffles me because the dog is just supposed to run away from you in a straight line towards nothing.
Yeah, we have the go out in now it's been many years since I trained a go out in the utility class of AKC obedience. Okay, but it's pretty much the same thing.
Yep.
And there's multiple ways to teach that. Actually, William Keeler, who wrote some very nice books about the upper level obedience, AKC obedience classes, what he did was he taught an excellent strong retrieve, and then there was always an object out there for the dog to retrieve.
Yep.
But because they're in the real competition, there would be no object out there for the dog to retrieve. He started using dowel rods, which were, kind of hard to see till the dog got out there. And then he started hiding or burying them so that the dog knew he had to get all the way out there. But then we would introduce the remote turn and sit.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yep.
So now I've done the same thing with throwing things so that the dog will go out, and then we turn and sit, and then maybe we send him back to the ball, or maybe we send him over a jump, because in the go out in obedience, in utility, is you send the dog out between a bar jump on this side and a solid hurdle on that side, and the judge tells you which one to take, and you just give a signal like that, and the dog has to take that one and then front you.
Yep.
But we teach them to go out as a game, whether it's a retrieve game or for my little Sheltie, who I started with back in 1969. I started out with a version of what's now popularized as the paper plate recall. But in 1971, I was using a paper plate with a little cracker or a treat on it to teach the go out. Mm-hmm. Because do you know the super old-fashioned, old-school way to teach that send-off, that go out?
No, what was it?
Oh, it was awful. And I'm so glad that we put games to it and said, you used a pulley. You'd set up a pulley system. You'd attach the dog to it. You'd tell him to go out, and then you'd do like this, and the dog would be dragged out to where he needed to be. Mm-hmm. And you just taught the dog, you want to beat the pulley, because otherwise you're going to be like, dum, 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 corrected all the way away from me.
Oh my God. Yeah, this is way better. For sure.
Yeah. Things have changed in the last, 50 years of training dogs. They sure, for the better, I think.
So I know you were describing with Friday about how you were getting her introduced originally with the Frisbee. Yeah. And when Friday would look at the Frisbee, you would mark with your yes, or, if you get closer, you'd mark again. Now, obviously up to this point, we know what marker training is. Our clients might not be super familiar with it. Marker training, if you want to describe it a little bit for us and how you're using it for them and how that marker was helping develop that desire to play with the toy.
Sure. Well, I think here's the best way we can describe it. Think back to anything that you've learned while being taught by somebody else. even driving a car, using a computer, learning a new computer program, whatever it is. And you start to do a little piece of it yourself, and you look at that person, you go, is that right? And they go, yes. And you go, okay, it gives you the confidence to continue. Or better yet, as you're going, the individual goes, that's it. That's right. Keep going. It's just the encouragement to the dog to say, you're on the right track.
Okay.
It
Now,
has to be very gentle and slow so that we don't excite the dog, because then they'll think they're done, whatever it is.
right.
But it's just that moment of confirmation that says, good, you're on the right track. Keep going.
Did you do any type of like marker conditioning prior to that so that the dog knows it before that moment? Or you're just saying, kind words of encouragement and the dog kind of intuitively understands it?
Well, okay, that's a fair question. So in the art of training your dog, which is the method which I use to train, my own dog, there are moments. If I have one regret about that book, it would be where we used markers in that book. We didn't call them markers. We just told people to acknowledge that the dog looked at you. But my dog, and any dog that I work with, is sort of used to feedback from me, which is low key but strategically timed to indicate you're on the right track here. Okay, so if I'm teaching a dog off leash hiking and I've reduced the space bubble so I want them close to me, and they look up at me as we're going, I'm likely to say, my marker, by the way, for that is usually hi, because the first thing that occurs to me is like hi, because the dog's like hi, and so I just feel like answering it that way. But so these dogs get used to a little bit of feedback from me at strategic moments, which acknowledge what it is that they have just done. If you get real excited, yay, well, then they'll think you'll actually break the train of thought, which the dog is now engaged upon, and that's not what you want to do. And so, but I will tell you, I have found that raw dogs who really don't know anything, they know humans. The average dog knows the average human better than the reverse. They know us better than we know them.
Okay.
And there's a reason for that. And that is, we genetically engineered them that way. They didn't engineer us. We did the selective breeding here. So even mutts are the product of thousands of generations of dogs who've been pre-selected to figure out what I'm trying to tell you. Because, hey, 20,000 years ago, when dogs were tools, I mean, they were useful for warning, for hunting, for helping. If you weren't useful, if you couldn't figure out what I needed, or if you bit my kid, you were probably in the soup pot the next day. And so I think what we did was we just engineered the dogs to be able to like figure us out. And here's some proof. You scold a dog, which people inevitably do, and they're upset, right? Maybe not even any physical pain associated with it, but there's and there's that emotional reaction of some dogs that you can see. On the other hand, think about a moment where you accidentally step on their paw, and you go, oh, your instant reaction is to go, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. And the dog is immediately like, it's okay, we're good here. And you can see the dog understands apology. And I think actually a better way to put it is, the dog understands intent on the genetic level. They understand intent. In the example of the scold, they may not know why they're being scolded. They may not be able to profit from it, but they know you're not happy. Mm-hmm. And a lot of dogs don't like that. And on the other hand, they know in the second instance where there was actual physical pain, there was no intent to do harm. And so they overlook it. They're amazing. We took the platform of something incredible, and then we just refined and tailored it until there's just magic. I love horses. I've ridden horses quite a bit, had one for a long time, and there's a connection. There's something amazing about horses that they can do for us. I love cats, but there is no creature like the dog, because the dog wants to be trained. They crave information, they crave the job, and they desperately want the best of us. And there's no other animal on earth who wants that of us the way that they do.
I absolutely agree. 100%.
Pretty
So
amazing, amazing creatures.
what we're coming down towards the end of our time. So are there other areas of the book that you'd like to talk about to kind of bring it all together as we finish out our episode today?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So well, I'll show you again. The book is called The Joy of Playing with Your Dog, but the subtitle is Games, Tricks, and Socialization for Puppies and Dogs. So the games have game-based learning to teach different concepts to dogs, such as recall, such as relaxation, such as an off switch. Tricks. We included tricks because it's such a good way to involve other family members and especially children in teaching concepts to the dog. And that can really be a problem because most kids are just going to play wild things with their dogs. And now we have a wild kid, and a wild dog. It's not necessarily productive. So there are tricks in there that help organize people, even children and dogs, to collaborate more calmly. But I think, the concept or the question ever since COVID that I've been hearing more than any other is my dog isn't socialized. There's an entire generation of dogs who are under socialized to other dogs and to people. And it's an enormous problem. These dogs were raised in a vacuum for the last several years. And so they don't know a whole lot about other dogs, but yet they're a sociable pack animal. So games, tricks, and socialization for puppies and dogs. We talk about how to adopt a second dog and to get your first dog used to that scenario, how to introduce two dogs. We talk about the forms of dog play that are okay, that might worry people, because a lot of dog play resembles mock combat, right? So we talk about what's okay in dog play, but we talk about dog behaviors that should be curbed and interrupted. Mounting, humping, neck biting, running a dog down, overwhelming another dog. And there's hundreds of pictures in this book. There's just hundreds of color pictures. And so we've illustrated, we've got pictures of, here is dog play that's healthy. And then here's a dozen pictures of dog play that is edgy and should be interrupted. And then there's a really excellent section on dog parks. Most dog trainers don't love the idea of the dog park, because we call it the Lord of the Flies, place, right? Mm-hmm. But that's because we undo damage that, because we see people come in with dogs that are freaked out because of something that happened at the dog park. But the reality of it is that probably 1 or 2 million people per day take their dog to the dog park, and the number of tragedies is small. The percentages are small. But we know we can make people and dogs safer in the dog park by describing everything they need to know about, should you even go in, right?
Yeah.
When I lived in the smack dab in the middle of the city with that Doberman of mine, we needed the dog park and he loved it. But I would study the contents of the dog park when I arrived for 3 or 4 minutes to just assess what was going on in there. So we talked through in the book a quick assessment of how people can decide, is this the day to go in there or not? And then once I'm in there, what do I do to keep my dog safe? What's okay, what's not okay, and how to intervene, how to break things up. So I think the dog park section is hugely valuable on how to socialize puppies and dogs. And then I'm gonna wrap it up on this. I think we can keep our older dogs healthier and more cognitively sound if we do things with them. You can't see her right now, but my other dog is that rat terrier, she's 18.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and she's blind. She's been blind for about 2 years now. And so but nonetheless, I still need certain things to do for her or with her to keep her mind engaged. I mean, she needs to still be able to find her way around this house that she's lived in all her life. And she does, she knows where her water bowl is. It's 2 rooms away and she finds it. Mm-hmm. But listen, puppies are born with their eyes closed and their ears sealed, but the first sense that they have is the nose, because they scent their way to nourishment immediately. And that's by instinct and by scent. And, this is a very, very poignant thing. But as dogs are going and as their senses are fading, their hearing begins to go, their eyesight begins to go. The sense of smell is intact. It's the last thing to go. It's the last, which is why whenever I'm with my dogs, as they're going to that bridge, I've got my hand right there. I want them to know, that I'm with them. So it's a very simple little game for my little rat terrier. All I have to do for her, it's so simple. All I have to do is take her outside and put her in grass. And my little blind, she just does terrier things in the grass. And, 15, 20 minutes, she's tired. And then I just got to carry her back in the house, But there are a lot of ways to engage elderly dogs that sort of keep them in the game of life. And so we have a whole section, on that as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have my 2 German Shepherds, my 2 oldest dogs, and they're both coming up on 11 years old now. And my female, she just started her first season of dock diving last summer.
Nice.
And she got her BH it's the first level of IGP last summer. We're not going to do anything more with her because at 11, she can't do that 1 meter hurdle, I don't think.
It'd be a bit much.
But I always get compliments on how healthy they are, how athletic they are, even at 11 years old. I absolutely agree. And I think so many people think, oh, well, I'm just gonna let my dog be fat and happy on the couch. I'm like, your dog has so much life left. And if you just let them sit stagnant, it's going to be reduced. And it's so sad.
I think it's so true. Listen, I noticed that I'm in my 60s. And when I started writing, sort of every aspect of my thought process got quicker. I noticed I became more articulate than previously. I was able to organize my thoughts better. And I think it's just because we tend to let ourselves atrophy if we just don't have anything to do. And that's certainly true of dogs. Mm-hmm. And so if you keep them engaged, I think it's so much healthier for them. And I think they'll just live longer. And honestly, I think that people and dogs influence one another's health and mental health enormously. I think dogs got an awful lot of my clients through COVID. And it's just important to return the favor. By the way, people can reach me at one of 2 websites, chicagodogtrainer.com or Marc with a C, Marc Goldberg dogtrainer.com. If anybody wants to talk to me, I'm out there.
And all that information and the links to contact Marc will be in the description. We're going to share it in all of our social media posts. The link to access the book will also be in the description and in all the social media posts as well. We're going to be airing this sometime next week. So technically, when you're listening to this, the book will now probably have been available for about a week at this point.
They'll be shipping.
Yeah, we're going to be posting all those links and sharing all the information, hopefully today or tomorrow. So if you want to read the book ahead of time and then listen to the podcast, sheet notes. I like it. Kelly, do we have anything from you? You've been so quiet today.
I'm sorry, I'm absorbing. But I don't think there's anything for me. I don't have anything going on, just my usual dog training. So
nice.
Sorry, Kelly, I didn't give you a chance to speak, but I appreciate your being here, and you too, Ashley. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Thank you so much, Marc. And thank you to all of our listeners for always listening and staying with us. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, www.airbornecanine.com as always. And any last words? Anybody?
Go play with your dog, people.
Go play with your dog. And as always, enjoy your day with your dog.